Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kastuba. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kastuba Das. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome back to Monday. It's Monday, and let me be the first person to tell you, you are beautiful, pure, spirit, soul, eternal, filled with knowledge. And
You think nobody told me that before?
I'm not telling you. Let me be the first to tell you if no one told you this morning.
Okay.
Did anyone tell you this morning?
This
You were
week.
filled with bliss. You were filled with knowledge. You're an eternal
You are the
being.
first. You are the first. Thank you.
And most of all, you're not the body and mind. Isn't that a relief?
Okay.
Unless you got a great body and a great mind. Then I'm like, oh, man. That's bad news on Monday. Oh, we are back from a crazy whirlwind trip, hanging out with all our people in Alachua. All the Zoomers got together. We had a big Zoom party.
Saturday night.
Linda splashing Mara down the Ichetuckney River, holding pinkies, then breaking into splash mode. Mara diving deep underwater, spinning Linda's tube in circles, doesn't know, catching her feet underwater, surprising her. It was crazy. And then, of course, we had Genevieve's engineer at the hoedown. We had Ananda Leela. We had my buddy Nitai Lieberman was there. My buddy,
that's
Nitai Lieberman.
He's growing up a little bit too. I saw one photograph.
He's 11.
He's getting bigger.
He's 11.
Yeah.
Hanging in
question.
Gopi. Yeah.
I saw some photograph and I thought I saw, oh, that's Genevieve's, and I saw another person. I thought that's Genevieve's.
Alexis Martin, look, they look like sisters. Alexis Martin, who
They're not sisters.
I've done the show live from Alexis Martin's house, and she's from Daytona. They're not sisters.
Yeah, they look
They're
like
soul
sisters.
sisters. They do look similar. They're stunt doubles. Who else we had down there? Sammy Long and the cat, and Ramah Devi, hanging out with Ramah Devi.
Nice.
I know there's more.
Gayatri?
I'm forgetting them.
Gayatri?
Yep. Gayatri, and she's here today. Gayatri and Madhu Mangal.
All right.
We got a crew. It's happening place. It's all happening.
Well, you're back now.
Oh, Crystal was there in the Krishna Miracles. Yeah, it was great.
You make it sound like a band.
There's a lot. That is a good name for a band. Crystal and Krishna Miracles.
Okay, let's keep it
like
moving. I
Seals
can
and
see
Croft.
you are just. We need to get you focused today. I can just see you.
We
You would
are-
just talk about. You would just go on the entire show.
Just
on this
talking,
kind
and
of
I saw
stuff.
him, and then I saw them.
Yeah, I know. So
Oh,
let's
it was
keep
like
moving.
that.
Welcome back. Welcome back
Thank
up
you.
the stage.
It's Makeover Monday. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good. Good. Got a little nugget for you, my friend.
So how about an announcement?
We got some announcements, and we
Mary?
got some nuggets.
Okay.
We're back to your recovery group meetings at 1 and 2 p.m. Eastern time today. And we also have one at 2:30 a.m. tomorrow morning Eastern time, which is, a reasonable hour for the Europeans. And then tomorrow there's a asana class with Riyad Hadassi at 10 a.m. And coming up soon, Anu Lawrence is going to be offering his posture therapy classes again for our Patreon members. I think it'll be the first Sunday of each month. He'll do a little workshop for people. So I'll have details on that soon. I'll send it out on the Patreon email.
Whoa, ho, ho. All right. Ready for a little nugget, sir?
Who is it from?
Neil Postman. What do you know about him? Interesting guy.
I know people must call him Mr. Postman all the time.
People on a regular
Excuse me,
basis
Mr.
break
Postman.
into that song. Mr. Postman.
I'm sure he's heard it a million times.
A million times. They all think they're like enlightening him. Oh, you want to hear a funny thing? I'm gonna sing Mr. Postman, and he's like, please. I've been tortured by that since that song came out.
I do think this Mr. Postman is an interesting guy.
I do think that song is an interesting song.
Sure. He was an American critic and educator. He wrote 17 books, Raghunath.
Really?
And his most famous and controversial one was called Amusing Ourselves to Death, a screed against television and how it turns everything into banal entertainment, including education and news. So it seems like he was studying how what we consume affects us in its different formats. That was a large part of what he was communicating. But he came up with like a lot of important ideas that, like the medium is the message kind of thing. He got deep into that. But we have a nugget from him today that I think is worth our looking into today, right?
Okay. He says, to ask is to break the spell. To ask is to break the spell. Blind belief and passive consumption can be broken through simple act of questions. So he was sort of like a social critic, wouldn't you say?
In a sense, yeah.
Just
media critic.
He was like a thinker, a critical thinker that just pushed people to ask questions. So to ask is to break the spell. Blind belief and passive consumption can be broken through the act of questions. The first thing that came to mind in Miss Mara's mind when I put this, when I queried her, is that a statement? When I queried you, when I queried Miss Mara, she said, well, like you're eating late at night. And I say, why are you eating? Are you hungry? And I usually answer with something like, shut up.
She was trying to break the spell. She was asking.
She's trying to break the spell. And I'm like, I don't want
passive consumption.
I don't want her to break my passive consumption because it feels good now.
Right.
And usually the answer is my eating I eat for every other reason except hunger.
Okay. I thought you were about to say that you eat on behalf of others.
I do. I eat on behalf of the world's problems.
No, that's a great example. That was a very very good example. Yeah, to ask us to break the spell. Yeah.
Okay. There's more, but
okay, good, please
tackle
continue.
that. Well, the other one was blind belief and passive consumption can be broken. So blind belief. This is like I see this, and then I'm not sure because I didn't research it, but I see this as taking a shot in people just accepting religion. And when I say that, I don't just mean like, I'm a Christian because my mother's a Christian. I mean, I'm a Hindu because my mother's a Hindu. And then you go through this and you believe in these things. And even my kids will go through these things and they've accepted certain values that their parents have handed to them. And then they go to college and they, meet some professor and says, who needs all this stuff? And this is some old stuff left to you by some, clergy. Have you ever asked this question? And oftentimes we haven't asked ourselves this question. I was blind following. Now, the difference in bhakti and what we're encouraging here with Wisdom of the Sages is you ask every question you have and we will chisel it down. We will explode it. You have to. You can't make advancement unless you ask these questions, unless you shoot down these doubts and shine some light on that. Wait, this doesn't sound right. And that's important. And I think it's important and that should never stop. Or I think you just won't grow. It's not just a faith-based practice. It's an experience-based practice. And to have that experience, you got to chisel this down stuff. And you have to you have to dissect what's dogma and what's truth.
Can't dogma be truth?
Well, see, the actual definition of dogma is, Miss Mara, is I think just accepted values, well, that you accept for the mere acceptance of them. Yeah, you got.
I don't think
you
that's the definition of dogma,
Is-
but I
right,
do
here.
think that that's the way that people use it.
All right, here's what Miss Mara says.
Okay, what do
It's
you got?
something held as an established opinion.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. So some dogma might be truth, but you got to. All
but
right,
your point was,
all right. My point is, you got to dissect what's nonsense, what's baloney,
okay.
and what's
People
truth.
throw that around. Like, oh, that's just dogma. Well,
Yeah, I know.
dogma may or may not be true. It may be dogma and it may be true. But yeah, people are using it that way. All right, Raghunath.
My karma ran over my dogma. Ever heard that one?
I have heard that one about a
It's just
billion
funny.
times.
It's so funny.
Okay.
Oh, my dog.
But you know, I appreciate your thoughts on this, Raghunath, and because I think you're saying something that I don't know, maybe especially I say the Western mind, but you know, it's probably all around the world. But it seems like the East has this there's almost like a glorification of the culture of questioning, right? Because they have these ancient texts, the Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita itself, right? It's like here's, you know, it's questions and answers, and the idea that
Good point.
you
Good
know, one
point.
moves-
Never thought of
one-
it.
yeah, it's a very rich tradition that glorifies questioning. It
Hmm.
doesn't just glorify the quality of the answers, but it glorifies the qualities of the questions. And you know, the more we hone our ability to question, the more that we're going to hone our ability to know. And even the idea that, like, if you go to the 13th chapter of the Gita, Krishna starts talking about knowledge, but he's doing it in a way that, like, when we use the word knowledge, it doesn't convey everything that's being conveyed from this tradition, you know. Whereas, like, knowledge, the very word, it conveyed the process of knowledge, how one gains knowledge, and so on. Like Krishna says, you know, it's 13th chapter, text 8 through 12. He says, he gives a whole list, and he says, these I declare to be knowledge, right?
Mm.
But they're more like virtues that he's speaking of: humility, pridelessness, nonviolence, tolerance, simplicity, etc. You know, these are virtues, but it was understood that it's through these virtues that one becomes receptive to knowledge, that one can actually begin to know, not even just like store information, but like know in a deeper way, to really understand who I am. You know, that's the first question, right? We generally don't ask that, you know, in the Western world, who am I? You know, and therefore we're in a spell, you know, and we have blind belief that I am this body, I am this mind, and it leads to passive consumption. You know, we just become consumers, and we don't penetrate. We don't make the most of this super valuable opportunity of being a human being for a short period of time. We squander that opportunity. And so within the, you know, Eastern thought, there is an idea, yeah, this is a special opportunity. Yes, you must ask the right questions, otherwise you squander it all.
You know, also, if you don't ask those questions, not only will you just stay very shallow in your belief system,
Yeah,
you won't be able to teach it to others, because
Sure.
other people are going to challenge you. And so it
Yeah.
helps you become a great teacher. And I think that's part of our growth. We get into bhakti. This makes sense. I'm going to put this in my life. That feels good. That makes good. And then you got your husband or your wife or your friends, and they're like, well, what about this? And what about that?
if
And
you
you
haven't
can't
questioned it,
defeat them. You never questioned that thing.
Yeah.
You've questioned a lot of your own questions, but and that was good what we had to go through. Kostuba out there distributing Bhagavad Gitas, me like touring the nation in the band, and you get a bunch of people who are atheists or punks, and they
Every
don't
day.
believe in anything, and they want anarchy and chaos and socialism, and they're just trying to chop you down the whole time. And you have to like put it, no, there is order. There are reasons why we do this. There is truth. Oh,
You,
look,
you know,
you got all
Raghunath,
happy. You nodded your head back and forth and got all happy. What's going on?
well, no, I was just thinking that when we were young men, um,
Young
and
man. Mr.
what's
Kasuba,
that?
young man.
What
What?
is that? Oh,
YMCA. Come
village
on.
view. Okay, gotcha. Um, when your hormones are running wild and you're out doing drugs and chasing girls and
Can you imagine a video of you and me doing doing
you let me get half a sentence out.
can't even get mine out. YMCA, but we're dressed like devotees. Young man,
Raghunath, please,
distribute
come
that
on.
book. I say, go man.
All right.
Come on. All right, go on.
Let me at least finish one sentence. When we were at that point in life, we were really fortunate that people triggered our imagination and into spirituality and kind of set us off. We got set off on a course. Like you were saying, you were in this band, but you were in one band, and then you got in this other band, but that was informed by bhakti. It was informed by Vedanta. And so you made your songs about that, and you brought that into a certain social world, I suppose, and you had to deal with it being constantly questioned.
Constantly.
And so
every show
and
screamed
yeah,
at.
and so not only did you have to refine your understanding of it through those questions, but I'm sure you're in your van with the rest of your band members and you're talking about how you're questioned and you're going through it all. It was kind of like I was going through a similar thing in another van with another group of young men, just like throwing these questions back and forth. Someone threw me this question, challenging one another, engaging our intellect in honing our understandings. It's a very healthy thing to do, and I think this is the kind of thing that Mr. Postman is kind of pointing at, is like, our technology nowadays may lock us into passive consumption. We're not engaging our brain, we're not engaging our thoughts, we're not engaging our mind in a way that's really healthy and that you you benefit from as let's say we move on past that. We hit our 30s and then we're dealing with other challenges in life, but doing it with a mind that's been honed in a certain way. We need to hone that mind that way. And I don't think our culture values questioning in the same way, and what to speak of questioning on these topics, right? We come through with we begin with the presumption that we're going to be happier when we're materially successful, and we focus our entire education on that idea. So what do I need to be materially successful, and what does material success look like? But we don't even question, what will I be happy if I'm materially successful? Is being materially successful really success, or can I be both materially successful and completely miss the point? So in any case, we got to ask the right questions, and that's what we're going to be reading about today. Is we've got a great questioner and a great answerer. We got Maharaj Rahugana. He's not, this is Bhagavad Gita. Again, I think we are talking about this last week, this Tadvati Pranipatena, Pariprashnena Sevya. Again, it's saying you approach the right person and you place forward questions. Pariprashnena, right? Pariprashna, it's like pari means
around.
To go around, right? Like you like the parikrama, right? Krama.
So many yoga poses with pari in it. Twisting poses and
twisting or sending something around, right? So krama means steps. So parikrama, that you walk around a certain, it's like a act in pilgrimage. You what you find sacred, you walk around it as a way of saying, I want to center my mind and my heart around you. So pariprashnena, you not only question, but you question it from all different angles. You go around, you question it from the east.
I never knew that. That's great.
You
question it from different angles. You walk around it, so to speak.
Yeah, and that's what in one sense, Rahugana has already asked the questions, and Jadabharta has already given the answers. but Pari Prashnan, he's going to walk around. He's going to ask from another angle, he wants to really understand this, and it's an example being held up for us. It's an example being held up for us about how seriously to take these spiritual subject matters. Don't just be satisfied on the superficial level, on the external level, on the surface level.
Mm.
We got to dig so deep into this stuff that we really transform. Not just that we conform, but that we transform, right? Not just that
Ooh.
we
knit that into your scarf, my dear.
Just came up with it. But yeah, that not that
You got to say that again. Say that again.
Not just we have to go so deep into that we not just conform, but that we transform. We can conform. We can say, okay, I accept it. I'm a Hare Krishna, or I accept it. I'm a Bhakti yogi, or I accept it. I have faith in
and
Krishna.
then it's over. And then it's over.
Then,
like I've done it.
Done.
I'm a Hare Krishna. Now are you happy? Like I'm doing it for you or this club.
Yeah, but we have to transform, right? It's that external label is easy enough, and that surface level faith, although even that can be very challenging, is in one sense is easy enough. If we're going to transform, and honestly, often, Raghunath, I feel like I've conformed thoroughly, but I haven't transformed thoroughly.
Oh,
and
I've transformed thoroughly. I just haven't conformed thoroughly.
Well, if you've transformed, you don't have to conform anymore. If you've truly transformed, you no longer need to conform.
Some people call me a transformer.
Yeah. Okay. But any case, why don't we get into
those are like robots, right? Transformers.
I think they're robots in disguise.
I'm a little scared of AI and transformers and robots and aliens. It's all getting too real now. What do you think about that, Mara?
No, that's true. I'll give you that.
Getting real, huh?
It's like this. What is this Chat GPT? I don't.
Oh my God, I'm scared
I
of
don't
that.
know what it is,
Scared of that. They can take your. I could make a podcast and duplicate your voice. I don't even need you. I could say, okay, we're not doing YouTube anymore.
Yeah, we could just have it like it can make our music. It can write our books.
I can make a fake Kostuba that sounds just like you, and I can program you to agree with everything I say. Oh, that's very good, Raghunath. You're the best. We want to see Kostuba. No, he can't be seen any longer. But
Okay,
no, they could do that. They could. You could program these people to be like, like you're kidnapped.
Very scary.
It's very scary. Like you could have your
on
child. They could copy your child's voice, and you could be like, "I've got your child here. Here's his voice. Dad, I need your help." That's scary.
Ragu was telling his kids in the car yesterday that they need to have a family secret password in case this actually happens.
Oh, come on. The Chat GPT thing could whip out that password in no time, probably.
No, they can't. Not the family password. Yeah, that's why you do a secret one that only people in your family know.
I know all your passwords, Raghunath.
Yeah. Should I just tell it on the show right now? No, no, because there's probably one of you guys out there could be copying my kid's voice.
All right.
I'm not telling anybody that secret password, and you better not tell anyone. Okay,
let's hit it, Raghu. Come on.
Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chai. Huh?
New chapter.
Go ahead. Chapter. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshu badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome in the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Milatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My teachers are opening my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances at their lotus feet. Doo-doo-doo.
Reading from Canto 5, Chapter 12, Text 1.
What's the title of the chapter?
It is Conversation between Maharaj Rahugana and Jud Bharat.
Yeah, third chapter of that. These guys are talking it out. What are you doing, Raghunath?
You ready?
I'm just looking. This This is from CNN.com and CBS.com. The U.S. tracking more than 650 potential UFOs, officials say.
Raghunath, please, remember, take that telephone away from him.
You gotta tell them. We've been telling CNN this for years. Now they're telling us. And now it's acceptable because CNN said it. There's more than that, people. Text 1. King Rahugana said, okay, here's the king speaking to Judd Bart.
Yeah.
O most exalted personality, you are not different from the supreme personality of Godhead. By the influence of your true self, all kinds of contradiction in the Shastras have been removed. In the dress of a friend of a Brahmana, you are hiding your transcendental blissful position. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
Well, a lot in that verse, even though it's just kind of kicking things off.
Yeah, yes.
What
Text
does
2.
it mean? Yes, but let's just keep moving and not talk about it. What does he mean by saying you're a friend of a Brahmana? You're in the dress of a friend of a Brahmana. I'm asking.
Oh, you're asking me that? It means
Yeah.
it doesn't appear like you're actually a Brahmana. I don't know. I thought that
No,
was sort
friend
of
of a Brahmana. You know that.
I thought that was a sort of a
Brahma Bandhu.
pejorative.
It is.
Right.
It is a pejorative.
Okay, tell me.
In other words, a friend of a Brahmana is the way you refer to someone like they're born into a Brahmana family, which a lot of people consider that means you're Brahmana. No, you're like, I think even a friend of is kind of like, it's being used in a little different way too. It's almost like you're kind of on the edge of that world, but you're not it. Right.
Right.
Like we would just say in the dress of a Brahmana, right, or something like that. But like you're a friend of a Brahmana. You're not one. You're not one yourself.
I don't know. It's weird because it's been used in the Bhagavatam, friend of a Brahmana, as a put down,
Yeah.
like when
Brahma
Ashvatthama was called a friend of a Brahmana.
Yeah. It means you're not really one. It means you're not. It's a euphemism. It's a kind of a soft way of saying you're not really a Brahmana. So although you're born in a Brahmana family.
But here it sounds like he's praising him.
No, here he's saying you're in the dress of a person that's not really a Brahmana, but you are a Brahmana, right?
Okay.
Because Jadabharta is kind of, again, he's posing as a, as a dullard. Right? But he's saying he's about to go further into his questioning. But before he does, he's already insulted Jadabharta, mistaking him for a dullard, right? So now he's praising him. He wants to counter that. So he's saying by the influence of your true self, all kinds of contradiction in the Shastra have been removed. That's an interesting thing too, right? Because it's indicating that if we read the Shastra, the sacred text, we're going to read stuff that sounds like it's contradictory. And the way that we understand, and that means if we invest our, a lot of times we read these books more to substantiate our beliefs than to learn or be transformed, right? Like, oh, I found evidence here that for my left-wing view, or I found evidence here for my right-wing view.
Right. You're using them to support some other thing that's not going to help you transform.
You're not
it's
really
just going to dig you
with
deeper into the material world.
Yeah, we're meant to engage with these texts and this wisdom for the purpose of transformation. But we may just pick out those parts. If we look at two things that may appear contradictory.
Very interesting.
Right?
Subha. Yeah.
So he's saying you're that kind of person that has a deep understanding, who has been transformed by this. And so therefore, when two things look contradictory, you're able to explain how they're actually not contradictory. You're able to show how it makes one holistic truth is presented in these texts. So he's saying you're special. You're not a dullard. You're not a dullard. I'm the dullard, right? And therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. And this is going back to what we were talking about earlier. Like, we go to the 13th chapter of Gita. Krishna's talking about knowledge. but he's saying, but he's given that whole list of humility, pridelessness, nonviolence, tolerance. You're not receptive to knowledge. You don't become transformed. You may memorize all of the information. You don't actually gain knowledge, real understanding, real transformation without the right attitude, without the right disposition, without the right virtues. When we go back to Bhagavad Gita 434, it says, inquire, pariprashnena, ask questions from all different directions, but it also says sevya, right?
And do say,
but also render service. So King Rahugan is demonstrating that this process of going deeper into knowledge and ultimately transformation, it requires the right attitude. So he's going to say, I'm going to question you one level deeper now. I've asked questions, you've given answers. I want to go deeper. But before I do, again, I want to nullify, my offense towards you, and again, demonstrate my awareness of that. And so he glorifies Jadabharata here.
Sometimes the converse also happens, that people study these things just for sort of academic, pleasure, or they just reading a book, and they hear about the qualities, or they meet a devotee, and then all of a sudden they become transformed. They didn't have any intention whatsoever on changing their life, and all of a sudden it transforms them. That happens in academia a lot. People get into this, they study it because it's an interesting subject, and then all of a sudden they're transformed.
I mean, there's even examples of KGB members who are studying it so that they could severely oppress, bhakti yogis back, before the Iron Curtain fell, and they became influenced by it. There was a book written by, I think I've mentioned this a long time ago on the show, but there was I think they called them there's some name for this kind of category, genre of literature, but they called them drugstore books or something like that. You used to go to the drugstore and there'd be a rack of books there, a paperback.
Yeah, my mom would buy them all.
Yeah, right.
A little one, like weight loss or something, like these little small books
like that.
Astrology.
There was one on there was one book that this woman entered into the Krishna temple in Brooklyn, but the old Brooklyn temple, the Henry Street temple, in the early 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of went undercover, oh, wow, this is a really cool thing. How do I become a member? She moved into the temple.
Oh, but she was an undercover,
but she was there,
journalist or something.
Yeah, she was there to write a book about it. And that was a dynamic temple. I mean, my God, you had some dynamic people. That was a jam-packed, temple, stuck in an old Italian neighborhood in Brooklyn. It was constant fights. From what I understand, it was who are these people came in from outer space, came into our neighborhood.
It must have seemed like they came from outer space.
I mean, that was an old hardcore Brooklyn Italian neighborhood. That was where Joe Gallo and all of them, the gang that couldn't shoot straight, that was their neighborhood, It was then these, these shaven-headed religious
zealots
moving to the neighborhood. But in any case, it had a lot of super brilliant young minds, young devotees in that temple.
Great musicians, great artists,
super talented people. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Go on.
But also a little immature in their faith, and so a bit wildly enthusiastic. So she moved in there, and she's writing this whole. I guess it was meant to be kind of an expose. Yeah. But she got totally influenced by it, and she started totally getting, in the end, she kind of wrote the book a little bit removed from it, but she had to admit that these are incredible people. They got a lot of answers,
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it does happen.
I think that's happened a lot, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Text 2.
That would be a pretty interesting thing, to go into one of those cults. Any other cult too. Heaven's Gate. Find what you guys up to back here. You're gonna go to heaven in a spaceship? What?
Whoa, that's for the sneakers?
Yes. Okay. Text 2. Oh, best of the Brahmanas, my body is filled with dirty things, and my vision has been bitten by the serpent of pride.
Oh, wow. What a thing to say.
Yeah, it's a great poetic thing to say. Due to my material conceptions, I am diseased. Your nectarian instructions are the proper medicine for one suffering from such a fever, and they are cooling waters for one scourged by the heat. This whole thing is very poetic.
Yeah, he's saying, I've been bitten by pride. I'm the king, and it's like a serpent has come and bitten me, right, and put this venom in me of pride. So therefore, how can I see the truth? I have no vision. My vision has been bitten by the serpent of pride. I can't understand things clearly because of my mindset, right? Due to my material conceptions, I am diseased. But your instructions are countering that. And so he's expressing his gratitude. But he says, my body is filled with dirty things.
Yeah.
And because they were talking about the body and the mind. But Prabhupada writes here, he says, the conditioned soul has a body full of dirty things: bones, blood, urine, stool, and so forth. That's okay. That's what the body's made out of. But we identify with it, right? Nonetheless, the most intelligent men in the material world think they are combinations of blood, bone, urine, and stool. Right? I identify with the body. I think this is me. If this is so, now Prabhupada asked this question. I asked this question when I was a little kid myself, Raghunath.
Yeah.
When I was a little kid, I used to think, okay, well, people die. Like, if all the blood leaks out, then people die. But why don't we just put the blood back in and start them up again?
My friend, you are a scientist, a mad scientist, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, the ingredient is there. If all we are is a combination of different material ingredients, then why can't we just put that ingredient back in and start it up? Why, if your car runs out of gas, you just put more gas in it?
Yeah.
Why can't?
Kustuba, you figured out the mystery of life at age 4.
We have to ask the questions, right? So Prabhupada says, if this is so, if we are our bodies, why can't other intelligent men be made with these ingredients, which are so readily available?
Yeah, just make it.
Just go to the blood bank, pour some more blood in there, start it up again. Create it in the laboratory. Anyway, this is a whole. I was. What are you laughing? Why are you laughing?
I'm just thinking they still haven't figured that one out yet.
Well, I did a little research on this too. This is something we should bring back some scientists and get deeper into this.
Yeah, because you and
but just the idea,
full justice.
Me, it's just the freaking craziest idea. It's like, it's called overintelligence, right? No wisdom. Like, we can have tons of scientific knowledge, research, which, by the way, is, here the king is saying, my vision's been bitten by pride. Because I have pride, I'm not seeing things clearly, even the simple things, right? He had power as a king. He had physical prowess. He had political power, tremendous influence. But he's saying, but pride it's created a disease in me where I can't even have the clear conceptions. I don't even understand what is what anymore, even on the simplest things. And I think we see this within the field of science sometimes. We have a professor who may have an IQ of 185 or something like that. But even the simplest things, they misunderstand, like the belief that consciousness is just material elements working together on a certain level of sophistication, right? A certain blend of material ingredients, and suddenly you have consciousness. Like, we can get a computer. You were saying ChatGPT, it's getting more and more so, where like we could create a computer that not only can mimic human behavior, but it can actually begin to do tasks that previously only humans could do, like write a song, or compose a book. The computer. But is the computer conscious? Does the computer feel?
They're becoming conscious.
No, you fell into it.
I fell in.
They're not becoming conscious. There's no
than us. They're
it
better.
Doesn't have any feelings. It doesn't feel. It's not aware of anything. It's a machine.
It can program itself to have feelings.
It's a machine mimicking consciousness, right? And so like, this was Prabhupada's challenge. Always was like, okay, if consciousness is simply a material construct, then produce it in a laboratory. They can't produce it in a laboratory, and I found this article from CNN where like they're asking this genetics pioneer named J. Craig Venter. He said that he had announced that he and his team had created artificial life for the first time.
Oh, have they?
But when you dig into what you find is like, he says, well, the CNN reporter is saying, what exactly have you done? And he says, and so he answers, we announced the first cell that is totally controlled by synthetic chromosome that we designed in a computer based on an existing chromosome. We built it from 4 bottles of chemicals, and so on. And so he said we assembled. He said we built it from 4 bottles of chemicals that over 1 million base pairs of chromosomes. That's over 1 million base pairs of chromosomes. We assembled that and transplanted it into a recipient cell. Oh, excuse me, right there.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So in other words, they took a living cell and they reprogrammed it. So he said we transplanted that into a recipient cell, and that new chromosome started being read by the machinery in the cell, producing new proteins, and totally transformed that cell into a new species coded with a synthetic chromosome. So it's the first living self-replicating cell that we have on the planet whose DNA was made chemically and designed by a computer. So it has no genetic ancestors. Its parent is a computer. No. That cell had a parent that wasn't a computer. Right?
There you go.
Yeah, and so he said, "What's its name?" And he says, "It's a software. It's a DNA software." The CNN reporters asked, "How big a deal is this?" And he says, "Well, we've been working on it for 15 years. It gives us tools to work with that haven't existed before, and we have some huge new challenges." And now, before I get to what he said there, I just want to shoot down further and say, he says, "Did you create new life?" And he said, "We created a new cell. It's alive, but we didn't create life from scratch. We created, as all life on this planet is, out of a living cell." Well, that's the point, right? You can't create a living cell. You needed a living cell, and then you kind of reprogram that living cell. But life only comes from life. You did not create life.
We need a scientist. We need the spiritual scientist back on the show to get to the bottom of this.
Okay, but here's one thing that I wanted to draw our attention to. He's saying that, okay, well, we're here. We've spent, these scientists are funded, millions and millions and millions of dollars going into the research, going into the laboratories, going into the equipment, going into the salaries that they pay. They're so deeply invested, and then they write books about it. They're never going to come back and say, "I made a mistake. I was wrong," because all of their funding, all of their reputation, everything is based on, but he says, he's asking how big a deal is this? And he's saying, we need new tools in science. Okay. That assumption right there. Do we, people have existed for a long time without your special tools. Do we need them? now he says, allowing us, for example, new organisms that more efficiently can capture CO2 and convert it into fuel so that we can get weaned off oil. Well, you know what? People didn't, people were living without petroleum fuel a long time ago.
For a long time, we did this.
We can create new food substances. You know what? We don't need to create new food stuff. God gave us all the food that we need. Right. We keep ruining it, with your quote unquote science. Why do we need new food substances? Well, because you create all kind of chemicals.
We swallowed the bird to catch the spider. We swallowed the cat to catch the bird. We swallowed the dog to catch the cat.
He says we can create new ways to create clean water. You don't create clean water. Water is clean. You pollute the water, with all of your chemicals.
That was the one beautiful takeaway I got from this whole COVID thing. There was many beautiful takeaways, but remember when they shut down everything and all this
became clean again?
You can see dolphins in Venice swimming through the canals, and you can see the Himalayas from New Delhi. It was like, oh, we figured out how to solve pollution. Stop all these polluters. It's quite simple. You don't need anything anymore.
You don't need to create something new. You need to stop doing what you're doing.
The polluters. We're going to keep polluting, but we're going to try to work around that.
That's right. And then he says we can create new ways to create clean water. Even that statement is just so ignorant.
To create
clean water. You know, water is. He says we are already going to create new vaccines to treat diseases that emerge each year.
Those diseases we created in a lab.
In the lab, or diseases that we created with our insane way of feeding ourselves with these factory farms, which are based on the new equipment that you're developing all the time, you know. So it's a new tool for scientists to work with. A person that's not thinking too deeply is saying, this is great, this is going to solve our problems. A person that's thinking more deeply, a person whose vision has not been diseased, you know, that hasn't been bitten by their material attachments, by their pride, by, you know, they can say, hold, this is incredibly ignorant. Although the guy may have, you know, a PhD and incredible funding, and he doesn't understand the simplest things about life and nature. Has this guy go spend a little time on a farm, guy, and see how life actually works? You know, it's like you are so far removed from wisdom. It's ridiculous, and we're funding you.
We're funding you.
You know, our government is funding you. You know, or super wealthy people are funding you who have interests, particular interests. You know, so anyway, to me, that was just kind of like a real. You know, Prabhupada just kind of gets it right down to the very simple thing. Right, the ingredients are there. Why can't you make it in a laboratory? Right? Why can't you just put the blood back in? Because you can't create life in a laboratory. Even though you came out and originally said, we've announced the first cell that is totally controlled by, you know, it said something like, they announced that they had created artificial life. You didn't create artificial life. You imposed artificiality on life, which he finally admits, like towards the end of the thing. Well, okay, we didn't create life. We created, you know, he's in the end, he says, all life on this planet, we created as all life on this planet is out of a living cell. That's right. You can't create a living cell. All right.
By the way, Stephanie Berman put up on the board the link to the New York Times article from 1971. Mansion in Brooklyn is home to group of 55 Krishna devotees. I could just, and if you're familiar with what's that, Carroll Gardens?
Yeah, no, mansion is. I mean, I guess
I know, but the New York Times wrote it.
It is. And I'm just saying it says it's giving a false impression, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, but it's you know, they're all mansions then. You know, but this was like an old Italian neighborhood, still sort of, my brother lives there, still like remnants of an old Italian neighborhood. And one of them is packed with 55 Krishna devotees. That's
like what packed to the gills.
Spectacle. Sleeping on the if I know the Hare Krishnas, they're sleeping on the roof, they're sleeping in the closets because one floor of it's dedicated to a temple room. So they're not sleeping in there. And so they're stuffed in every other corner of the other floors.
How many people did it say?
55.
I think it was way more than that.
That's got to be against the law.
It was more like 150 or something. I mean, it was like insane what was going on. You know, it's like that place was jam packed.
It must have been
okay.
Phenomenal to witness that. Okay.
Oh, we're almost done here.
What are we on? What's going on? Text 3. We made it 2 texts. Whatever doubts I have about a particular subject matter, I shall ask you about later. For the time being, these mysterious yoga instructions you have given me for self-realization appear to be very difficult to understand. Please repeat them. Read that again. Please repeat them in a simple way so that I can understand them. My mind is very inquisitive, and I want to understand this clearly. The perfect student, huh, Kostuba? Perfect student and the perfect teacher. This is the
perfect answers. Yeah.
This is when things come together. When you get someone who's actually filled with knowledge, and you get an inquisitive, sincere soul who's ready to set their pride aside and just ask in a humble way. This is where magic happens. This is the recipe for magic.
This is where the magic happens. Yeah, Prabhupada writes, the Vedic literature instructs tasmad gurum prapadyeta jignasu shreya uttamam. An intelligent person, must be very inquisitive to know the transcendental science deeply. Right? Therefore, one must approach a guru a spiritual master. Although Jadabharta explained everything to Maharaja Hugana, it appears that his intelligence was not perfect enough to understand it clearly. He therefore requested a further explanation, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, right? Because as we started with, where did we start? That to ask us to break the spell.
Oh yeah,
right. So he's like
assumption and.
Yeah, I'm still in the spell thing. I'm a big king. Look at me. I just demonstrated, right? I just was sarcastically chewing you out for no purpose at all. I'm still under that spell. So although he's asking for further explanation, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 434, Tadviti pranipatena pariprashnena sevya. The student must approach a spiritual master and surrender unto him fully, pranipatena. He must also question him in order to understand his instructions, pariprashnena. One should not only surrender to the spiritual master, but also render loving service unto him, sevya. So here's the formula, right? So that the spiritual master will be pleased with the student and can explain the transcendental subject matter more clearly. And when it says that, so the spiritual master will be pleased, let's not, from our, position of skepticism or jadedness or whatever you want to call it, we think, oh, you have to please that person. What it means, please, it means like when they see that you are now capable of receiving, right? When they see that you're able to set aside attachment, set aside pride, set aside all these things that would block you from receiving the message, now they're pleased. That's all they needed to be pleased, right? Is like they didn't need your money, they didn't need your praise, they didn't need these things. They saw that you were like sincerely inquiring. Oh, okay, now you can actually understand.
You know what?
I'll spend the time.
That's when the transmission happens, and I think you can recognize this because you've been around the block for a while. But preaching to somebody doesn't necessarily work if they don't want to hear it.
Right.
And my thing is I only speak to people who want to know about this stuff. I only speak to people if you want to know about it, I'll tell you. But otherwise, you're just gonna bang heads with the person. But there comes to a point in time when the person, like, what makes you tick? Like, I like that about you. How did you get here? Why do you do it like that? Where they're actually, and you can see that sincerity. And then once they take that position of like, I want to know, then you let it all out. Then you let it all out and you just pour it all over them. You know what I mean? But if you're just meeting on equal grounds, there's a lot of skepticism. There's a lot of ego. They're trying to figure you out. They're trying to put you in a box. I clam up. But like, even like, say, especially like with family members, I don't tell my family anything. Okay. When I say family, I mean like my brothers, my sisters, my mother. I don't tell them anything. It didn't work. I tried that in the old days, and it didn't.
You're gonna have to come back crawling for it.
You're gonna come back on your knees. You want to know what I got? I'll tell you what I got. Now, when they're actually curious and humble about it, then you give it to them.
Genuinely curious,
and then they can hear.
Yeah. All right. I think that's it for today, Rogan. We need where'd Mara go?
That's it. Mara, get back here. We need you. The dog started moaning and crying.
Oh, Gus?
Did Mara tell you that we saw a real treasure hunter on the beach? This guy was serious. He had the metal detector. He got the headphones. He had a big scooper. And I was like, she told you that? We talked about this.
You told us that. Not her, you.
I was like, what'd you find? Did you find anything?
Bottle cap from 1983.
Find more than bottle caps, sir. You do find that stuff, but you also find treasures.
Ask every question and shine light on your doubts.
Okay.
Bhakti is experience-based, not just faith-based.
True.
Hone our ability to question.
Hone it down.
Engage your
That was Scooby-Doo.
Engage your intellect in sharpening knowledge.
Okay.
Question from all angles for full understanding. We don't need to just conform. We need to transform.
I really like that one.
You could take that and run with it, Raghunath.
We don't need to.
I give it to you.
You don't need to conform. You need to transform.
That's right.
I was talking to Ananda Leela's at the program we did the other day, Ananda Leela, and she said, Raghunath, I don't know how to share this with you, but one of my friends said that Raghunath is just too much in the morning. And I said, no, I like him. I need that. I was thinking to myself, ouch. Ouch.
Could you just give me like the second part of that and not the first?
Can you just tell me half truth, please? I want to apologize in advance if I'm a little too much for your morning and I drive you away from God. Please forgive me.
And pride zaps clarity.
Oh. Thanks, everybody. Pride zaps clarity. Well, it's another beautiful Monday. It's a beautiful Monday. And if you haven't heard it, or if you joined late, you're a pure spirit soul. You just forgot. You're filled with bliss. You're eternal. And you have deep inherent knowledge. Isn't that great news? And above all, you're not the body. You're not the mind. You are something divine, my friend. Take me by the pinky and walk with me towards God.
I think the title of that book, we got to find it online right now. But I think it was something like The Wild and Zany World of the Hare Krishnas or something like that. It was like...
Well, that was the one I just read to you. Maybe it was a different one.
What? What are you talking about?
I just read you the title.
Oh, what did it say? Tell me again.
It was... What was it? It was a New York Times article. Mansion in Brooklyn is home to group of 55
That's a New York Times article. I'm talking about a book.
Oh, there was a book, like The Wacky and Wild World of the Hare Krishnas?
Something like that, yeah.
Oh, that would be good to get.
I read it.
It is sort of wacky and wild. Especially back then, it was really wacky and wild.
And wonderful.
And wonderful. It had definitely had a wonderful element, or we wouldn't be here.